The modern world is a tough place to live in. The pressures of life place a constant demand on us to perform, to please, and to achieve. Many people feel like it never stops. Add to this the often unhealthy physical environments we inhabit, and the demand on our bodies can easily become too much. Piece after piece of your life can be taken away until you can hardly even recognize it. It's not yours anymore. You no longer have freedom to make decisions and choices because they're all dictated by your depleting energy. It doesn't matter whether it's hiking a mountain, attending to a newborn child, or being focused at work. You just can't do it anymore. It hits you hard and you become overwhelmed with everything in your life. You're tired but wired, short-fused, forgetful, and cranky. It feels like a nightmare you just can't escape from. Every time you look in the mirror, you want to scream, "This is not the real me. What has become of me?" But it doesn't have to be this way. You can turn it all around. You can turn the tide. It does work. You can do it. Today can be the beginning of a change that you will never forget. Trust me, you now have the answers. Whenever there are toxins that accumulate in our body or within the thyroid gland, this can cause an autoimmune response. Essentially, the body believes that we're not in a safe place, and so it wants to slow down our metabolism. And the way that it does that is it starts attacking the thyroid gland to slow it down. So we know that in times of famine, in times of war, in times of high toxicity, it's really not beneficial for us to reproduce. It's really not beneficial for us to be running around. It's really not beneficial for us to be out and about in the world. And so the body, through adaptive physiology, whenever it feels or senses a stressor, will try to slow itself down. And a lot of times this happens through an autoimmune attack on the thyroid gland. When you really think about the symptoms of an underactive thyroid, you're going to be more tired. So this would actually be beneficial in times of a war or a famine because you'd spend more time sleeping rather than being out in danger. So not many people know this, but the people who survived the Irish potato famine, many of them actually survived because they were hypothyroid and they had Hashimoto's. And so their body helped them survive by slowing down thyroid hormone production. So the body helped them conserve their calories and conserve their energy. This is really a brilliant design of our body to help us survive tough and stressful times. And whenever I talk to women with thyroid disease, I always ask them, okay, what are you doing that is making your body think that you're in a famine, that you're in a war? And many of these things could be things in our environment. So this can be a toxic environment that we're living in, and this leads us to believe that we're under attack and that we need to slow down our metabolism, that this is not the best time to reproduce. Sometimes the toxic environment can be the people around us. So they may be people that are not encouraging. There may be people that bring us down. In some cases, just having toxic people in your life can flare up an autoimmune condition like Hashimoto's.
Do you think it starts with the body or do you think it starts with the mind? Because looking at some of the patterns that a lot of women with Hashimoto's have is we talk about women who felt suppressed and women not using their voice. And we go into why a person feels unsafe. And so we start thinking about when can hypothyroidism become protective? So if we were under attack, if we were cave women and somebody was trying to hurt us, one of the best ways of protecting ourselves would be to withdraw back into our cave. If our hair started falling out and we became less fertile and put on some protective weight on ourselves, perhaps the men in the village would be less likely to go after us to try to rape us and hurt us. I don't think it's a coincidence that for every man that's diagnosed with a thyroid condition, there are 5 to 8 women. And it's what women go through. It's the constant battle that women go through from the society, as well as within our own heads, the way that we've been socialized. So we are always taught to be perfect. We're taught to be a certain way. And I really do think that it starts with the mind, with us rejecting ourselves, rejecting a part of ourselves, suppressing ourselves, and our body senses that. Our body senses that danger.
whether it's the outside or there's a famine or a monster of some sort, to inside thoughts.
It's a coping mechanism, right?
It's a coping mechanism. So then we shut down, we withdraw, and our body starts to attack our thyroid gland, which runs our metabolism, which gives us the energy, and it makes us advocate for themselves. So it's actually a protective mechanism.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And I mean, there is a few common points, right, with women that have Hashimoto. Like they have a lot of responsibility very young in their life, right? They're high functional. I mean, there's so many like CEOs or like, and even though they're sick, like they're pushing through, and they have a lot of from what I hear and I see, post-traumatic syndrome. Like they had trauma in their life young, whatever that is, emotional or physical.
Absolutely.
You have to feed yourself physiologically, then you have to feel safe. That's the only way that you can thrive and move up through the levels, right? And so that's it, sense of safety and feeding yourself and community.
There's been hundreds of studies that correlate emotional trauma, physical trauma with long-term chronic illness. But I think one of the best studies was the ACE study, which was put on, spearheaded by Dr. Vincent Filletti from Kaiser Permanente in San Diego. They followed 17,000 middle-class, middle-aged white people, they were all Caucasian, and they assessed them for what they would consider an adverse childhood experience, and that is, were one or both parents alcoholics? Did one or both parents hit you? Did one or both parents sexually molest you? Were you neglected as a child? Was there mental illness in your family? Did someone go to jail? And they asked, a series of questions, and based on your answers, you would have a scoring system. And what they noticed was that individuals who had even one adverse childhood experience had a 50 times more chance of having a long-term chronic illness, which was also exacerbated by poor coping mechanisms. So these individuals who had an adverse childhood experience typically drank a lot of alcohol, they smoked cigarettes, they didn't take care of their health as much, and of course, in their middle age, were winding up with chronic conditions, So there's definitely a correlation.
I think it's really helpful to have that connection and be able to look at your past events and understand that the way that you are now, it probably served some sort of a purpose in your life. So maybe now you're on heavy alert and now you're more stressed out because something bad happened to you as a child.
Right.
And to a point that can be protective, but we know that in the long term that can be a very inflammatory, very negative thing.
I didn't realize that no matter where I was all the time, I had to be keeping track of things, and I was really jumpy, and I just, it's so exhausting to live like that and to feel like, you have to protect yourself all the time, that you can't trust your environment, you can't trust the people around you.
Yeah, it is very exhausting. You're always in that very tense mode, and you're almost like this warrior and you're this fighter. And in a sense, when you have autoimmune disease, you're a warrior and a fighter, except for against not just the rest of the world, but also yourself.
Right, it's like your immune system is mirroring the way that you're interacting with the world. We have to be hyper-vigilant,
One of the things that I look at is I just look at the basic part of the diagnosis. What is Hashimoto's? It's when your body is at war with itself. It's attacking the thyroid. So I ask myself, okay, if my body's at war with me, where am I also at war with me? In my thoughts and in my relationships and in my beliefs and in my patterns. And because I've kind of let this diagnosis be a messenger to me, I've been listening and I've been learning about myself that this isn't just my body against my body. Actually, my thoughts have been against my thoughts. I give myself a hard time for a lot of years. Oh, you didn't do that right. And super critical of myself, all up here. Where else was I at war with myself? Well, I had relationships in my life that were toxic and contentious. People who were more committed to judging me than they were to loving and accepting me. I saw that was being at war with me. When I would be tired, I wouldn't go to sleep. I'd still work 3 or 4 more hours into 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. So I wasn't really honoring me, and I saw that as being at war with me. And so I took that whole thing of what is Hashimoto's and I turned it into an opportunity to shine a flashlight down the other places in my life to see where else was I not at peace with who I was.
So when it comes to eating psychology, for example, there are so many people who are walking around, I hate my body, I'm too fat, this isn't good enough, I want to change this, I want to change that. And when we are hating on the body, we are essentially attacking the body.
Just like an autoimmune disease.
Autoimmune disease. And that's an autoimmune disease literally of our thinking. It's self-attacking self. So it makes perfect sense to me because we know mind and body track one another.
Yeah.
So if I'm attacking self with negative thoughts, physiology can often follow where all of a sudden the body starts to attack itself, or the body can attack its own thyroid gland, which is, wow, how does that happen? So the body's very kind of magical in that way, I think.
Now, I'm not saying that's the only factor whatsoever, but I think it's really important to look at the thoughts that we're thinking, the fears that we're holding, and the beliefs that we have about the body, because they will impact the efficacy of any treatment protocol.
Have you ever felt like people just don't get what you're going through? Your doctors, friends, family members, and even loved ones just don't get you, and they try to give you advice that's almost offensive. Have you ever felt like you were in the middle of a satire and the joke was on you?
I like you significantly better as a person when you have the headband on.
I'll keep it on.
Yeah. Isabella, let me ask you, what was your journey with thyroid disease all about?
You know, JP, when I was in my early 20s, I just started seeing my health declining. I was getting more and more tired. With every passing year, I started developing numerous health conditions, irritable bowel syndrome, acid reflux, carpal tunnel, you name it. I had probably a list of 20 different symptoms before, but I had carpal tunnel. I couldn't do yoga. I really couldn't go out with my friends. I was just sleeping for 12, sometimes 13 hours each night. I had such a hard time getting up in the morning, and I really lost the connection to myself and to my dreams and passions. Like, I was this person, this young person with all these dreams and goals, and all I was doing was sleeping.
So what's the difference between what you went through, you stopped doing all these activities, sleeping all the time, between that and a lazy person?
Well, you know, I was sick, so I had this invisible disease, and nobody could see how sick I really was because I looked fine on the outside. But I was exhausted on the inside, and I was really struggling. I was having panic attacks and no energy. I was losing my memory. I was in pain all the time, and people did think I was lazy. They saw me, and my friends would laugh at me for sleeping so late. But it wasn't my choice. It was the condition I had. All right, let me take this off.
Wow. How unspiritual are you now? There's a saying where I come from, if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it might be a duck. So when people were seeing you be lazy, it might have been because you're lazy. And I totally get the victim martyrism kind of thing in this journey of yours. But I'd recommend a little bit of ambition and passion into your life.
Well, that's the point, JP, is that people have the passion and the ambition, but thyroid disease stops them.
Let me stop you right there. Did you try using a vision board?
Yes.
And is that what cured you of thyroid disease?
I mean, definitely helped. It always helps to set goals and put together, a vision board. I love that.
Let me ask you this, Oprah. How much action did you take to rid yourself of thyroid disease?
A lot of action.
That's your problem. How much effort was that? A lot or a little?
A lot.
Yeah. So you took action. That's your problem. You didn't use the law of attraction. It's the law of attraction, not the law of action. The law of attraction is always much easier because you can just sit back and visualize what you want, and you can then be lazy, and you don't have to do anything. It just comes to you.
Oh, okay, so you've actually seen people who just made vision boards and decided that they were just gonna do whatever, and then they didn't do anything.
Do you know what I have on my vision board at home?
I don't.
A picture of you and I sitting together on meditation pillows. Explain that.
JP's so funny. I personally think that laughter is the best medicine, so I was thrilled to include this funny little bit from him in the documentary. But more importantly, I hope this little silly clip brings some awareness to you to show you just how ridiculous some of the patterns and stories we've been fed really are. Don't listen to the voices of people who tell you that there's something wrong with you, that it's all in your head, that you're not enough.
Some of the docs I know, I love them. They're doing the best they can, and they really do want empowered, smart patients. The challenge is just they don't have the time. Who has 2 hours to sit, do an exam, talk through, answer all the questions, look at all the paperwork they bring? When somebody walks in with a big stack of papers, and they have a name for those people. They call us the petit papier people. It's actually a terminology among doctors, and it's very derogatory.
What does it mean?
It means the little papers in French, petit papier. So they said, oh, here comes another petit papier person. The little paper people, the ones that come in with their big, piles of papers, and they don't love it. They don't like it. They don't want you to be coming in with petit papier. They don't want those papers because that's information or challenges or questions, and yeah, some of it is nonsense. I've heard people, you find crazy stuff on the internet, but some of it is, when I've heard doctors say nothing on the internet is legitimate. I'm like, the National Library of Medicine's entire catalog is on the internet. Are you saying that every medical journal that you read is not legitimate? Oh, well, not counting that. Okay, well then what about all the, research journal press releases and information that's coming out from medical society? Oh, well, not that. Well, okay, yeah, I understand. From the patient standpoint, I get very frustrated when I see people identify themselves as their disease. 20 years ago, when the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed, there was actually a mandate for government that we use what's called people first language. So, you had a person with multiple sclerosis, or you were a person with a disability, a person with any sort of condition, never to say, oh, it was a Alzheimer's person or a, disabled person or mentally retarded child, et cetera. It was always a child with or a person with. And yet now I hear people all the time, and I see it on my support groups, on my forums. I hear it in teaching and coaching and people that I meet throughout my journey. I hear, I'm a Hashis, I'm a hypo, I'm a hyper, I'm a Graves, I'm a thyroid. The thyroid cancer survivors or thyroid cancer patients, they tend to have their language is a little bit better. They don't, I'm a thyroid cancer. But that sort of points it up, because I would never say I'm a thyroid cancer if I had thyroid cancer. But yet I have Hashimoto's and I have hypothyroidism. I'm a person with those 2 conditions. So I don't say I am a hypo, I'm a Hashi, just like I wouldn't say I'm a cancer. But imagine the power of what this message is delivering to your body and your mind when you identify yourself as the disease. No, you are a person with that condition or that challenge, and or a person living with, or thriving with, or overcoming, or healing myself with. Just the simple matter of a little shift in language can sometimes be a really important part of how we view ourselves, because it shifts you out of victim mode. It shifts you out of identifying yourself as your disease, and rather to identifying yourself as this is one of my challenges, but it's only part of my picture. It's not my identity.
You don't have to feel like the victim. I get that. I understand it. I feel it. And there are times when I'm okay, I'm going to be the victim right now. I'm going to feel it, I'm going to own it, and I'm going to work through it, right? So you can, but you don't have to have that mindset the whole time. You can pat yourself on the back. You can say, I think I saw something that someone reshared that you had posted. Baby steps is a good thing, right? Celebrate the small successes. You don't have to feel like the victim all the time. It's okay to, but just pay attention. Like if you've cut out gluten for a week, yay you, right? Make yourself, do the little things, and then also try and do self-care.
because I think that's really important. And I think that helps you kind of come out of your victim mentality, and it's okay to have self-care. One of the things in Costa Rica that was so interesting is that when we got there, my parents, sorry parents, they would ask us, so what are you guys doing? And we'd be like, nothing. In the States, you're so used to having to do something all the time and being productive and not wasting a minute and all of that. And that's not very mindful. And that's not really how we were made as humans, to be totally on 24/7, right? And so we spent a lot of time kind of reflecting and not doing things. And I think that's important too. And I don't think it gets the justice that it deserves. Self-care is really important. So if you need to like take a walk or go outside and get on the ground and do some grounding on the earth, or if you can't get to some grass, then you just outside, take your shoes off, do some simple things. A forward fold, a forward bend is so helpful. If you can only do it in a chair at first, do it in a chair, but it's still helpful. My husband, he hurt his knee, so he can't do a lot of the things that he used to be able to do, and he's so frustrated because he's a soccer player and was very fit before, and so he's like, can't do it, but he's trying. So, try to, small victories are okay. Give yourself a break.
I hope that your disease opens up the door for you to see how strong and powerful you truly are, and that taking back your health will be the first step in creating the life that you deserve for yourself. I do want to bring light to some of the challenges you may run into in your healing journey. A big challenge that people don't often talk about is the toll that the disease can take on partnerships.
Being married to Hashimoto's, that's like a real party, What comes up in the relationship, really, first of all, is what you're bringing of what you expected yourself to be in a relationship. I expected myself to be cute, perky, adorable, fun all the time, and having energy and being able to say yes to life. And Hashimoto's meant my body changed, and my emotion changed, my moods changed, my energy level changed, my weight changed. So that meant that I had to adjust, because I'm in relationship with somebody now too. I'm having to express myself, explain myself, deal with someone else's disappointment, receive someone else's compassion and help, where I thought I was going to be super independent and able and capable. When you're married, you're not working through those things alone. You're working through them with another person who's on their own growing path, who has their own triggers. So my husband, having a mother who passed away when he was 16 from health issues, his emotions and issues got triggered too. So you're not just dancing alone, you're dancing with someone else. So learning how to be a partner, learning how to let someone in, learning how to say what you need and what you want, and to express that in a way that isn't coming from this place of, I know you don't want to give this to me, or I know you're not going to be able to help me, because then it's all got this energy of, you can't help me, and you say it in a snotty, snarky way, and then you come off even more moody and bitchy than you already felt from the Hashimoto's. So now you're creating conflict in your marriage when you really need help from this person.
I'm not kind of like one of those in-your-face kind of guys. I've heard from women reporting that it's like, he's so mean, he's so angry. There are guys who are, I don't know, it seems just like being a jerk. They don't think it's a legit health issue, and they're like, you get up, and when I married you, I expected you would be, and it's like, damn. And it's not, this doesn't not this compassion. So for me, it's not like I was getting in Stacy's face, but my style was more like, God, you're just like, you're anxious about everything. You can't go out anymore. You're freaked out. You're anxious. The noises are bothering you. Your stomach's jacked up. You can't, as soon as we sit down to eat, you have something, we got to zoom out. And so mine was kind of more like, okay, well, I guess we're hanging home again. Like disappointment. And people know when you feel like you're being tolerated, or it's like, again, with you. So that was kind of my style. It's all kind of variations on the same thing, whether you're in your face angry about it, or just not understanding, or kind of like, okay, whatever. She had to basically go it alone. She had to own, everybody has to own their own health, right? I can't do that for her, but you know, when you have a partner, you know, we've been married coming up on 28 years, just to know that she was going through something that was like really hard, and it was legit, and I missed it, and instead of being like, hey, come on, guy, let's go out, you know, and thinking that she's just lazy. I could have been like, whoa, dude, this is what's going on. Damn, okay, let's go to this person. And it's like, she got, you know, disapproval, she got judgment for years. And I feel bad about that, because that was it. Having someone who can partner with you, it's like, oh, I know you're tired. You just relax. Let's read up on this together. How you feeling? You know, there's something when you come together towards a specific goal, right? There's that intention. You're both working together. There's like things fire on all cylinders, and you get somewhere faster when you're both on the same page. So that's what I missed. She, you know, she's a strong woman, but it's like, even she couldn't sort it out. She didn't know what was going on, and so she's like sitting on the couch, like, you know, like dizzy. Part of her thing was she just had like this crazy dizziness, and she would just sit there all day, and, you know, be on the internet, trying to find community with folks who are going through it, trying to sort it out, and I'm just at work going, it's easier over here, you know. Life makes more sense. I do my job, I get appreciation, I go home, and it's just, it's kind of a bummer. So that's what I wish I could go back and change.
I felt like I was a burden, and I felt like he wouldn't love me if he knew that there was something wrong with me. I didn't want to be that damsel in distress. I didn't want to have somebody feel sorry for me. I just wanted to be this vision of myself as an independent woman who can take care of herself, but that really wasn't the truth, and I really needed help, but I didn't ask for it, and so I just kept suffering. I kept suffering in silence, and I think finally what happened to me is I was really ashamed, because I felt like my body was breaking apart, and I felt like it was my fault. And I had a lot of expectations on myself, and there are, you know, expectations when you're married that you support your partner, you do certain things. And when we first moved to California, I didn't have my pharmacy license yet, and so my husband was working, and I was sleeping the whole day. I was so tired, and he would, you know, kind of get home, and he'd get upset because he had been at work the whole day, and there was like no food, no groceries, the house was a mess, and I was sleeping. And so that didn't make for a very fun, you know, beginning of a marriage, because he was like, what's wrong with you? Why are you so lazy? Why can't you do things? And it really made me feel bad as a person, made me feel like I wasn't living up to who I was supposed to be. I thought I was supposed to take care of him, and here I couldn't take care of myself, let alone him. So he was coming home from work and like making us food. And that was challenging for me, because I wanted to be that person.
Yes.
You know?
And some people lose everything. They lose their husband, they lose their job, they lose everything because they're desperate.
They lose a part of themselves too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They suppress themselves, and then they withdraw from the world. And they withdraw from their dreams, they withdraw from the goals that they want to have, from their friends, and
you hit bottom.
You hit bottom. But I don't know though, part of me thinks like if you didn't hit that bottom, you'd never be able to come back up, right?
Mm-hmm. Always have that is the ultimate transformation. You go in that dark place, and there's a little bit of light somehow in the most darkest place, and you just focus on that little light, and it'll bring you back up somehow.
And you rise.
Right.
Still I rise.
And it takes time, and it takes time, and it's challenging, and it's speaking up for yourself. And then it is, again, it's a dance, because here he married somebody who was very independent and spirited, and then after after we got married, as things started going downhill, I became allergic to everything in our apartment. I became allergic to our dog, who we just both loved, and started getting more and more symptoms, and I was losing hair. And all of a sudden, I just, I had enough of it, and I started telling him what was going on with me when I was diagnosed. And for him, that was very hard to take, and he actually got mad at me. And he said, "Why are you crying? Like, this isn't you. Like, you should be strong. Like, plenty of people have thyroid disease. Like, why are you crying?" And it actually...
Here, take this pill.
He didn't know how to deal with that. He didn't understand that, and he wasn't used to me speaking up for myself. So it was a big change for both of us, where I would speak up and he would get angry. And then...
Right. And this is the thing that you have to, you have to open your throat, and you do have to express. And then when we do, we're not supported. So it's like so distorted, right?
But I'm speaking up for myself. Yeah. I'm advocating for myself. Look at me go. And then the people in your life are saying, you go back into your hole. I'm not, I'm not okay with this. Because you're changing the whole...
Figure it out.
Yeah, go back in your hole and figure it out. You're changing this whole... you're transforming. You're changing within you, and it upsets the dynamics in your life. And people don't know that you. They don't know that you that's been inside there all along, wanting to scream and speak out.
You may see your relationship take a dynamic shift and change as you go through this process, and you may hope that someone will be there to save you. But the truth is, as much as we want to depend on our loved ones, doctors, and our community at large, we really have to save ourselves.
I have a very, very dear friend who's an integrative medicine physician, and one of the questions he asks his patients is, how much of your health is my responsibility as your doctor? And then he asks them, well, how much of your health is your responsibility as the patient? And it's always very interesting, because in the vast majority of cases, the patient who's at least naive to integrative medicine will say a very, very high percentage of the responsibility is the doctor, is the clinician, and a very, very low responsibility is the patient. And it doesn't make much sense, because the doctor is seeing you maybe 1/10 of 1% of your life in order to guide you, and you've got the other 99.99% of your life that you're with you, that the doctor is not. And so those numbers really should be more even, or even reversed, that let the clinician guide you as a patient. But you have to be on board. You have to be able to take responsibility for yourself, and you have to be able to move yourself forward. And unless you don't have that intellectual capacity, which certainly there are not many people who don't, you should have that intellectual interest in guiding yourself.
There are times when I see people needing support to figure that out. At the same time, like you said, there's so much available inside of us. And this is the story. Shel Silverstein has a story called The Missing Piece and the Big O. And I just think it explains this really well. So the missing piece looks like a Pac-Man figure, and he or she is looking for that piece of pie that fits into that open mouth, that hole. And this is so true of so many patients, looking for the next pill, the next protocol, the next practitioner, not even sticking with something because they think it didn't work. Really just looking for that quick fix. And what the missing piece finds is that nothing fits right. Everything's a wrong fit. It's too big, it's too little, it's misshapen. He can never find the right fit for his missing piece. And then one day along comes a whole O, a whole circle just rolling along, very happy. And the missing piece is like, wait a minute, how are you doing that? You're rolling without the missing piece being filled. And the big O says, just keep flipping, keep going. And that hole will actually fill in. You'll become whole. The rough edges will become round. And then you can roll with me, but I'm gonna roll and you can roll, and we can roll side by side without me having to be your missing piece. And I think for me, that epitomizes the story of the patient that's longing for the quick fix. And that process of, getting those rough edges to smooth out is really the hero's journey. It's going through the dark, rough places, finding a guide that can actually advise you, but isn't the answer. Mentorship actually means that you do the work yourself and you show up for your mentor. Mentor isn't somebody filling in the holes and the gaps for you. And so as people diagnosed with a chronic illness and coming to terms with the fact that we can live fully with that diagnosis means that you're in a journey, and that journey's gonna change along with your body, along with the stressors in your life. So many things are changing, and it's a dance. To dance with that whole process, and you just keep rolling. And the beauty of that is that you get to learn more and more about yourself. It's not always fun, it's not always easy, but it's more evolved, and there's so many blessings in the hardship, any hardship, if we can understand that ability to roll and look inward and learn and show up for ourselves.
I really love how you describe that, and it just paints such a picture of the journey of going through our own healing. And the people that I find that really get better are the ones that take charge of their own health. And I think in some strange way, Hashimoto's or any other kind of diagnosis can be your path to personal growth, and it can be a way of figuring out when there's something that didn't quite fit in your life, and they can help you to get there. It's really, really important for a person to realize that how much control they have of their own situation and how powerful they really are. They can help themselves. And of course, having a coach, having a guide, having somebody who's maybe done it before with themselves or with other patients, other people like you, it is going to be a tremendous opportunity, because you can look at them and say, wow, they're doing it. That O is rolling on its own.
Yes.
You know what? I can start rolling too.
Yeah.
It's about our deepest feeling, our deepest self-doubt, and it's a self-attack.
I think a lot of us advocates also have some sort of, and yes, I might be applying myself here, but I think a lot of us sometimes have a history of being silenced. And the history of being silenced is what usually makes an advocate. You know, you feel silenced in one respect. It doesn't even have to be related to a health issue. At least mine wasn't. Yeah. And once you're silenced, you kind of regret that feeling, and you say, no, next time I'm going to say something. And then I felt victimized again. And I went, no, not this time. No, not you. So for me, it was, having that voice, and I feel that's true for a lot of us. Like, it doesn't have to be so dramatic, but it's somehow, even if it's something subtle, you lose your voice. And you just don't ever want to feel that way again.
Really stepping out with talking about my health experience was the biggest change for me, because I was always a very private person. Part of me was ashamed of being sick, so I didn't want to get the message out there. Whenever I was in forums or online forums like Hashimoto's 411, or looking at any of the blog posts that I would follow or any of the websites, I would never comment, just because I didn't want people to know that I was sick. I felt like people would hold that against me, whether it was an employer that would say, okay, she's sick, so I'm not going to hire this woman because she has brain fog. Well, I'm not going to hire her.
She's less than perfect?
Exactly.
I can talk about the connection between shame and inflammation. So we know that shame is inflammatory. In fact, there was a study done where they had students sit for 20 minutes and think about some experience in their life that was shameful. And they measured their blood afterwards, and they found spikes in inflammatory cytokines. So we know that from that study that induced shame caused a lot of inflammation. Unfortunately, we live in a culture, and it's a global culture, of shaming and blaming. This is how we do it, right? It's part of a punishment to other people. It's part of how we get back at other people. The media is shaming. The health and wellness industry can be, making women feel bad about themselves. So healing from that is recognizing that it's there. recognizing that you have. A lot of people say, I don't feel shame. I don't have any shame, but maybe they have anger that's covering it up, because shame is not something people really want to talk about. Not even psychologists or psychotherapists. I mean, shame is shameful. You know, when you think about something shameful, it's like the worst thing.
It's hidden.
Oh yeah, and it's very uncomfortable to speak about. So I think just getting into the conversations about it, and just even journaling, you know, is one of the ways, because it is inflammatory. And I have found, because I work with autoimmunity, and there has been a big connection between abuse and autoimmunity in my practice, that there is a lot of shame there, you know. So just having someone be there to truly hear your experience in a non-judgmental way, not in a way that I'm going to fix you, but just hear your story, and have empathy for you. And that's one of the ways that that shame kind of dissolves, because empathy is the antidote to shame. Okay, so if we can have empathy for ourselves, if others can have empathy for us, and then if we can start to look around at our environment and the media and everything that we look at, and try to make it kind of a project that I'm going to find out the areas where shame is being projected onto me. But no one talks about it. We don't talk about our shadow. Shadow work is another therapy that individuals can work with, which is looking at the areas of their life that they're not so proud of, or maybe like the dark part of themselves, you know, like the part that maybe isn't so sweet or kind, or, you know, or appropriate, you know, and working with those energies, because we do have them. Everyone has them. And, you know, I had a woman the other day say, you know, I come from such a screwed up family, you know, and I know that my family, like, nobody else is like this. I mean, everybody else's family must be totally right. And I'm like, you know, the only people who aren't crazy are the ones you don't know that well. So don't worry, you're just fine. Yeah, so I think it's just having these conversations and, you know, looking deeper into it, inquiring into it is a good start. It's really good to journal, you know, to get clear about your feelings about your childhood, or if there was something that happened, and then to be witnessed. It's important to be witnessed, to be able to tell your story to a non-judgmental person who can hear you and acknowledge, yes, that happened to you. And that right there is, I can't tell you how healing that is. It's absolutely wonderful.
For me, a part of the journey has been accepting my health as just a part of my purpose and a part of my mission. So when I was first sick, I tried to suppress it all. And then it was, why me? Poor me, why me? And even when I was first taking back my health and started to advocate for my health, it got to a point where I had no other choice. I had to get my health back, and I had to get my life back. Part of what drove me was watching the people that I used to work with day after day put up a good fight. So I used to be a consultant pharmacist for people with developmental disabilities, and my job was to advocate for their health and to be a voice for them, because a lot of the people that I worked for were disabled to the point where they were not able to speak up. So I was the one speaking up for them, and then seeing them every day get up and do their best with all of their disabilities was amazing and beautiful, and I felt like I can't be silent anymore. I have to speak up for myself.
Right? So you were their voice, but meanwhile you had to go through that to find your voice. It's amazing, the irony.
And I think the battles that we go through, so when somebody sees you fighting, you're an inspiration to them. And then when somebody sees you accepting, you know, you become an inspiration too. And for me, it's really been a combination of both places. The acceptance came when I realized that every health symptom I had was put there for a purpose, so that I could have empathy for others that were going through it, or that I could figure out how to fix it. And that's always been something I wanted to do, was help other people with their health. And I don't know how healthy I would be today.
Right.
And so I do look at it as one of those gifts that you didn't necessarily ask for, and at times you want to return, but in the end, you know, you end up being grateful that was a part of your journey.
Facing adversity is tough and really tests our character. For better or for worse, it'll be a transformative experience. But those who come out victorious choose to see their situation as an opportunity to grow and become better versions of themselves.
Dr. Stephanie Daniel, who's a good friend, spoke on our functional forum in San Francisco about the thyroid as a source of evolutionary alarm, where, you know, if something's wrong with the thyroid, you shouldn't necessarily look at the thyroid and deal with the thyroid, but the thyroid is almost like a barometer of what's happening. And the thyroid is like an early indication that something's wrong. And if you can get to that and realize that it's an early indication and not something that needs to be like put down or burned or killed or maimed, but actually something that's telling you, hey, something else is going on here, you need to have a deeper look. That can be a moment of clarity. Like, how often do we get that early alarm? I think we'd all want that early alarm. And if the thyroid is providing that early alarm to us to really take a look at the way that we're treating the body or otherwise, what a beautiful thing that it provides. And so not only does it provide that early alarm, but it also, you know, the people that I've seen that have had, you know, significant a shift in their, you know, in their world as a result of it is really exciting. And so, you know, I would love to see the thyroid become that for millions of men and women all across the world, where, you know, anyone who's dealing with thyroid disease sees this as an opportunity not only to take a different way of dealing with their health, but to come out the other side of it, doing amazing things in the world and taking it as a moment to, you know, release their creative expression, what they came here on the planet to do. And sometimes you need that reminder. And so thyroid disease isn't all bad.
I mean, this may sound crazy, but like, I really believe this. Like, I think this whole thing is like a spiritual journey. You know, I think all of life is a spiritual journey. And I really think this, like, in the end, at the end of the day, if you just boil it down, like, being of service is part of that spiritual journey, you know? So to me, it's tremendously rewarding, and I feel like, I mean, you know, we've got so many problems in the world today. There's so much hatred and so much strife and divisiveness, and, you know, not like I'm gonna save the world or anything of that magnitude, but in a little way, you know, maybe I can make a difference in a positive way in people's lives, and really it's about love and compassion. It's not something like where I don't want to be right. I just want to help these people turn their lives around.
I have faith in God, and I grew up in the church. I grew up in a family who was faith-filled. For some crazy reason, God has saw fit to put me through this, or to help me come through this. And you always think about when people say, like, I went through something. Well, to get through something, you actually have to go in it, you know, and you have to go from the beginning, the middle, and the end, right? So going through something means you're passing, and you have to feel everything that it feels to go through something. And so right now, I just feel like I'm in the through part, you know, and I'm still journeying, and I'm still just trying to figure everything out. But I know that just like you know, we have a purpose and a mission and a duty on earth to help people who are going through the same things as us, and hopefully prevent them from having to go through everything that we went through. So I guess just focusing on like the bigger picture, if you can do that. I would say that in the beginning, I did think it was a curse, you know. And I will say that it's interesting that you say that, because I thought that this diagnosis was a punishment from God for choices that I made in my past that I wasn't proud of, and maybe this is what I deserve, you know, and maybe this is my lot in life. But I know that's not true now, you know. And I think I see it more as somewhere in between, but really I need to look at it as a blessing, because it is a blessing. Because before I got sick, my mother can tell you, and my family can tell you, that I was just so self-centered. And the world literally revolved around me. And if it didn't, something was wrong, and it was either my way or no way. I wasn't compassionate. I could care less about other people and what they were feeling. Wow. And that's really sad to say, you know, to admit that you were that person before. And after I got sick, I started tapping into that compassionate side of myself, because I knew what it felt like to suffer. And so I could empathize with someone, not sympathize, but really empathize with someone else who was suffering in any kind of way. You know, it didn't have to be their health, but I just started looking at people for who they really were.
In a way, being ill gave you an awakening of a part of you that you never quite knew was there.
Yeah, exactly. My mother has always been like the super loving one in our family, and she's always like literally like brought any and everybody into our home. I've always thought it was so annoying. Like, we've always lived in a condo, we've never had enough room, but she just, oh, it's okay, you can sleep here, you can live with us. And I'm just like, Mom, no, like, no. And she's just always like, yes, and I will give you my last dollar, and I will go broke, and I will do all this if I can help someone else. And that always just bothered me, because I'm like, you're too nice. But then as I got older, I'm like, man, I wish I could have just a little bit more of those qualities. And then going through this has slowly but surely kind of changed my heart into having like my mother's qualities. And it's a beautiful thing. I mean, I'm never gonna be like her, never gonna be as nice as her, but it's in there somewhere.
I love that you said that, and I love another thing you talked about, what we deserve, and what, you know, what's been given to us, and we deserve to be sick, or we don't deserve to get better. And I think that's a huge part of the issue that I see with a lot of women, myself included, who've gone through an autoimmune challenge, where a part of me believed that I got what I deserved because of some things I did in my past, or because you know, and that I didn't deserve to feel better. How did you transform that? What was your aha moment that led you to change that way of thinking?
I hate to keep, you know, referring back to my faith, because people are going to think like this crazy God-loving woman, but I do love God. I think that once you realize that there is a God that loves you and wants the best for you, that those lies can't exist with his truth, you know? And sometimes when I would just say it out loud, like to my mother's my best friend, so she's like always been my sounding board. And sometimes when I would say things to her, she would say, yeah, you're right, that's true. And I'm like, what? And she's like, how ridiculous does that sound? I'm just feeding back to you what you're saying, but doesn't it sound absolutely ridiculous? And I'm like, yeah, it does sound ridiculous, actually. And there are so many things that people do, you know, in the world that are terrible, horrible things, and they come back and they're able to regroup and have second chances at life.
We talked about some of the things that thyroid disease has taken from you. Are there things that thyroid disease has given you?
Sisterhood. I mean, tribe. You know, people who can understand, I think, is so important, you know, because otherwise you feel very alone. And it's very difficult for, you know, the people who have people in their private, closest realm that are understanding, they're so fortunate. And what's amazing to me is all these women that I have met and become close to in this journey. You know, I almost call it Superwoman syndrome, because all of these women are so successful, and you would never, ever think that they struggled so much. So for me, that was a tremendous, you know, gift to meet these amazing women. So sisterhood. It's given me, and also just this enormous rise to fight for people to understand that you can ask for things from your doctor. You need to ask for things from your doctor. You can't just take their word, as smart as they are, and leave it alone.
You had to fight to get your health back. What was that like?
It was amazing. From the tribe, you know, tips from the tribe, there's lots of things that have just been amazingly helpful, but it definitely has been a fight. I've had to fight for my health, literally fight for my life, for proper testing and for invasive testing. I think functional and integrative practitioners, it's much easier, but for a mainstream physician, you really have to fight for proper testing, to make sure that you're well.
I know what it feels like to be exhausted and overwhelmed. At times, you may feel like giving up is the only option, but I want you to know that you can recover your health, and that you, your life, and your health are worth fighting for.
In today's society, it's the norm not to listen to our bodies. When we have sickness, so many of us, myself included, have just tried to press on, to keep going, and ignored our own body's cry for help. In a world of deadlines, pressures, and expectations, it seems like the only way. But I'm here to tell you, this lifestyle of constant stress is not compatible with thyroid health. There's a proverb that says, "What would it profit a man if he gained this whole world and lose his own soul?" It's the idea that if you got every single little thing accomplished, but found that you had destroyed your health in the process, what good would all these achievements really do for you? You wouldn't even have the chance to enjoy the fruit of your labors. I'm sure if you had a broken leg, you wouldn't just get up and walk on it, right? Are you willing to treat yourself with the love and nurture you deserve, the care you need?
My name's Harry Massey, and when I was 21, I ended up with chronic fatigue syndrome and Hashimoto's. It all started my last year of university, where I started to get increasingly tired, but I didn't quite know what was wrong with me, and I took my first job in London at Aon Capital Markets and had to take 20 days off during my first 2 months, and subsequently got fired. And because I didn't know what to do, I thought if I go and get loads of fresh air and do loads of exercise, it would probably cure me. So I went out to the French Alps and basically went mountaineering for 3 months. And during that period, I just got increasingly tired and started falling off cliffs because my coordination was sort of going out the window. And it got to a point where I got so exhausted, I ended up stuck in a tent for about 10 days with hardly any water in there and only a few dried bananas to eat. And after about 10 days, I managed to basically get myself back to England, and I got in my car and I would stop and pull over every half an hour. And and I ended up getting back to England. I didn't really know what to do with that, so I decided to do an MBA, which was the most stupid thing I could have done, because I was basically very into just pushing it, and I thought if I pushed it, I could get over this whole exhaustion, tiredness thing. I enrolled in an MBA. I ended up splitting it over 2 years instead of 1 year. And during my last year, it got so bad I ended up in a wheelchair, and I did all of my exams in a wheelchair, and then I was wheeled back home to my parents' house. And I did actually miraculously get an MBA, and then after that I basically started a period where I was completely bedridden for about 7 years.
Stress is a self-perpetuating cycle. We have initial stuff that causes us to feel stressed, and then we, especially as women, we stress about the stress, and we know stress is bad, so we stress about being stressed. But for me, it was realizing that stress is much more than a mental reaction, because in school, I'm extremely type A, so in college I pushed myself to the absolute brink, which is probably partially why I now have Hashimoto's, because I didn't eat, didn't sleep, just literally chugged coffee and occasionally ate sushi while running to class and pushed myself super hard. And at that point in my life, I functioned great. I'm very type A, so I functioned really, really well under mental stress. And I thought stress is just a mental feeling. And I kind of associated with that. So I didn't feel stressed. I felt great. I love being busy. I thrived on that. And so I always just assumed, if you don't feel stressed, then there's nothing to worry about. And so for me, it was realizing during the frustration of thyroid disease and not being able to push myself like that anymore, and being very frustrated with myself about being tired and not being where I was, realizing that stress is much more than just a reaction to things and much more than just a mental expression, that there can be many levels of stress going on in your body on a biological and chemical level, even when you don't feel stressed. So for me, realizing things like all these outside influences in my life, like the water I was drinking that had chlorine in it, was causing a physical stress on my body. And that was a big factor for me personally, was removing chlorine. That not sleeping enough is a tremendous physical stress on the body that affects hormones drastically, including thyroid hormones, and that I was going to have to actually start making an effort to sleep. I say sleep's my nemesis because it's the hardest thing for me to do is to just turn off and sleep, especially now that I have more energy. Prioritizing sleep has gotten difficult again.
Why do some people succumb to sickness and why do others thrive? The key to staying healthy and getting healthy has to do a lot with resilience. Our resilience is largely dependent on the way we respond to stress, and our stress response is very much dictated by two tiny glands you've probably never even heard of. These are our adrenal glands, which produce our stress hormones. The state of our stress hormones is not to be taken lightly. When adrenal hormones are out of balance, we lose our ability to be resilient. Stress and trauma can have a detrimental effect on our long-term health. But how does this relate to our adrenals? What are adrenals and what do they do for our body?
Adrenals are your little glands. They sit over the kidneys and they help to support us when we're under stress. And they're really well adapted to the kind of stress we used to have in the olden days, right? When there were tigers and lions and bears and you'd be out there looking for food and suddenly one of these creatures would be chasing you and you had to like jump up and run up the tree and fight and do all this stuff. So your blood pressure went up and your blood sugar went up and your heart rate went really fast and your breathing increased, and those are great things. And then in the olden days, once that happened, you'd be up in the tree watching the tigers dawn, you could get down, and everything just like settled back to normal, right? But we're running around with tigers chasing us 24/7 because our modern day stresses, they're not the physical stresses, but they're the mental and emotional stresses. How are we gonna pay the bills? Where are we gonna get the food? How am I gonna have enough time? Will I make it to the kids' dentist appointment in time because I got to get there from work across town, and is there going to be traffic?
So how would we know if we had dysfunctioning adrenals?
You know, we think about big symptoms, we think about sleep issues, we think about symptoms that fluctuate throughout the course of a day. So a strong one is that, you know, afternoon I always crash, or 9 o'clock at night I get a second wind. So there's many possible symptoms, but I think the real big flag ones for me are just symptoms that are repeatable within a day cycle. That's like almost surefire going to be some adrenal factor. Also, we think about blood sugar regulation. So, you know, craving sweets. You know that you're totally going to be edgy if you miss a meal. That can be part of that.
So sugar cravings and salt cravings could be potential signs that somebody's adrenals may be impaired.
Yeah. It's a funny thing because the adrenal hormones, there's actually more than 57 that are made, but the big one is cortisol. And cortisol, we call it a glucocorticoid, so it's about regulating glucose. And when our blood sugar levels get lower, you know, rather than go into a coma, we make our own sugar. And we pull that from muscle tissue, from our liver. We make glucose to keep our body running. But we use stress hormones to do that. So that's where hangry comes from. That's where you're missing a meal and you stress yourself out internally to raise the blood sugar back up again.
So did you catch that? Hangry is actually a medical phenomenon. It's the body's way of giving you energy to keep running. But unfortunately, prolonged blood sugar imbalance can cause a massive amount of health problems, and in particular, hinder your healing from thyroid disease.
We're going back 20 years at this point. I've been helping people using a nutritional functional medicine approach for almost 2 decades. And I think at that point, something was birthed in me that made me want to really solve diabetes and solve blood sugar problems. Interestingly, it was years later, I started having my own problems with weight and struggling with my blood sugar. And I found myself at almost 220 pounds with high cholesterol and high triglyceride levels, and my blood sugar slowly creeping up. I remember one night waking up in a puddle of sweat, and it was one of those moments where I just said, what is going on? You know, what is going on with my health? I was under tremendous stress, had a couple of young kids, buying out a partner in my practice. And at that point, it was sort of a wake-up call. I remember going downstairs in my home, checking my own blood pressure and finding out that it was very high, scary high. And at that point, said, I got to do something different. I put myself on my own program, basically, but I started following my own advice, really, is what happened. Because even doctors, the best of us, can sometimes slip, and we can get too busy and too distracted. So I started following my own advice and was able to lose almost 50 pounds, you know, get down under 170 pounds. And at that point, felt 20 years younger. All my numbers got in line, my cholesterol became normal, my blood sugar became better than it ever has been. And still to this day, I'm able to maintain that. But that gave me that renewed passion for really, I think, getting some empathy with people and understanding what they're going through. And that is where diabetes became my passion. And so I see it now with women who have thyroid problems, men who struggle with their weight, adrenal dysfunction, and other hormone imbalances, that there's this link between hormone problems and a strong link with thyroid and blood sugar. And if we can find a way to optimize blood sugar and take that stress off the body, people lose weight, they feel better, and they protect their health.
I love the blood sugar stuff because it's so often overlooked. The people are jumping in and they're trying to fix their thyroid and they're trying to fix their sex hormones when the blood sugar is out of balance, and you really aren't going to get very far with fixing the thyroid and repairing it. And I have stories of people who like years and years and years of medication, and then they balanced their blood sugar and all their thyroid stuff went away. It just happens.
Amazing?
It's totally amazing. Within 4 months, like completely gone, completely off, all antibodies gone.
Balancing your blood sugar is one of the keys to recovering your adrenal health. I recommend that you eat plenty of good fats and adequate protein and limit your carbohydrate intake. A 2016 study of people with Hashimoto's found that they had greatly improved their thyroid markers as well as experienced weight loss when they ate fewer carbohydrates. So what are the other keys to restoring adrenal health? I'll give you a clue. One of them is sleep. Did you know that sleep deprivation is one of the fastest ways to get your adrenals to malfunction? Now, getting adequate sleep is also one of the quickest ways to recover your adrenal health. This is one of my favorite interventions as well.
If you had to do one thing besides eat, it's sleep. So sleep affects every organ system, every disease state. There is no known animal that has a nervous system that doesn't have a period of inactivity and recovery. So everybody needs it. What's fascinating is we don't know exactly why. There's a lot of theories, and I think it's probably multifactorial. We know that sleep helps you from the physical standpoint, sort of rejuvenate cells and regrowth and help with injury and help with healing. But we also know that on the mental side, it helps with memory, it helps you be able to think clearly, solve problems, and from a mental health perspective, it helps lower your levels of depression, lower your levels of anxiety, things like that. So there is nothing that you do that you can't do better with a good night's sleep. So the first thing you should do, if you realize that you're sleepy when you shouldn't be sleepy, is look at the total amount of sleep that you're getting. That's step number one. Step number two is look at caffeine. If you're drinking caffeine past 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it could be having effect on the quality of the sleep that you're getting. Sometimes people are hypersomnolent or have hypersomnia, not because they don't get enough minutes, but because the quality of their sleep isn't so good. So caffeine is a big effect. Stop caffeine by 2 p.m. Alcohol is another big effect. I don't mind you having a glass of wine or two with dinner. It takes the human body approximately 1 hour per alcoholic beverage to digest. So for every alcoholic beverage you have it come away 1 hour from your bedtime. So as an example, if you have 2 glasses of wine and you're going to bed at 10, you need to stop drinking by 8. Giving your body that 2 hours to digest through that alcohol so it doesn't affect your sleep. The fourth thing I have people do is exercise. The single biggest way to improve the quality of your sleep is to exercise. And so if your doctor says it's okay, 20 minutes a day is one of the best things that you can possibly do to improve your sleep. And then the final one is to get 15 minutes of sunlight every morning. A lot of people feel tired and sleepy and things like that because their melatonin faucet is still going. Sunlight actually turns that off on them. So one of the best things that they can do is actually go outside, get 10-15 minutes of sunlight in the morning. It resets their circadian clock and they're good to go.
I encourage you to start figuring out how much sleep your body needs and to do your best to stick to it. It sounds so simple, but getting good sleep is one of the greatest tools we have to ensure true health. Another great tool is exercise. And you're probably wondering, how am I going to add exercise to my routine when I'm already exhausted and overwhelmed? Now, let me tell you this. Some types of exercise can be detrimental for your adrenal and your thyroid health, depending on how impaired your adrenals are. We're going to talk about some exercises that can actually benefit everybody with adrenal dysfunction and with thyroid dysfunction. I had the chance to spend a day with Natalie Jill Fit, and she shared some resilience and strength building exercise that can be beneficial for most people. Hey guys, I'm really excited here today with Natalie Jill, and we're going to show you some simple exercises. So Natalie, can you get us started with showing people what kind of things they can do to just get them started when they're not quite in a fitness world yet.
Sure. So I'm going to give you some basic exercises that you can do that are all progression based, because the key here is I'm a fan of using your own body weight. I'm not against weights or machines, but I'm a fan of using your own body weight. And the big thing I like about that is you can gauge and increase your own intensity, and you can progress every exercise to really challenge yourself. So I'm gonna give you just a few exercises that are all great ones. We're gonna work the whole body. You can do them at home, no matter who you are, where you're starting from, and you can progress and get yourself stronger.
Let's do this.
All right, so the first one I'm gonna start with is a basic plank. Now, before you say, planks, I don't wanna do planks, I wanna show you something. Most people don't like to do planks because when they're in a plank position, they tend to arch their back. They are here and they start saying my lower back hurts, my shoulders hurt, whatever else hurts. So I'm gonna show you the correct way to do a plank that helps develop that core, that helps alleviate back problems, and it's something to work towards. You ready for this? Okay, so you're gonna come down and do it with me. So we're gonna get in a plank position. You can do it from your hands or your forearms, but here's the deal. I want you to really tuck and exaggerate, so squeeze your glutes. Really, so lift it up, so squeeze your glutes up even higher. So really engaging your core right there, squeeze it.
Oh, okay, I
so
feel
see
that.
what happens is when you do that, you're taking all the pressure off your lower back. You don't feel it in your shoulders, anyplace else, right?
This feels so much better than when I've usually tried them at home.
So sink it down how you used to do it, down here.
Yeah, it
so
just
what
hurts my
happens
back.
is everyone says it hurts my back. That's because they're not doing it right. So yes, the correct way to do a plank would be to be totally straight. But for people learning and beginning and getting rid of that lower back pain and strengthening, you want this. Now watch, she's been in this for about 30 seconds and she's
How long
dying,
am
right?
I supposed to hold this?
So you can stop, But that's what I wanted to show you about intensity. So go ahead and put your knee down. Whether you're doing it for a second or 5 minutes, it's whatever is intense for you and it's something to work towards. Now if you're a beginner and you say, I can't even do that, I can't even start there, what I want you to do is start from a bench or a wall even, because you'll just do that same position, but you're here. So you're holding it here, it makes it a little bit easier. Or even from a wall. So you just start where you can start, but the whole idea is to engage your core, so you're really squeezing those abs. So I call it the grandpa butt tuck. So we're just tucking under. So you want to squeeze.
I like that.
So it's not Instagram pretty, but it's what's the right form. So that's one. And so that's a plank, that's my #1 favorite exercise. Okay, ready for a second?
And you could do that at home.
You do it at home, you can do it anywhere. And it doesn't matter how long. Everyone says, well, how long? It's whatever you can do, whatever's gonna make it intense for you. So you wanna keep it that way.
I love it.
Next exercise?
Let's do it.
The next one is, we're gonna use a wall. Okay. And I'm gonna have you go ahead and sit against the wall here, back here. Now I want you to squat down like you're sitting on a chair. Go lower, lower, right there. Okay. So I want, just right here, and you wanna feel that in your butt? Do you feel that?
I feel it in my butt.
Okay, so you're gonna sit here now, while you have your arms here, I want you to slowly lift them up and down, creating resistance.
Oh, wow.
Okay, but you want to pretend like you're lifting a heavy weight, pushing up and down.
It feels heavy.
So what happens is we're working our back, we're working our shoulders, and we're working our glutes and our legs at the same time. You feel it everywhere?
I do. This is like a full body workout.
Yeah, so, and you can modify this. So if you, let's say you can't do the lower, you can come up a little higher, you'll see it makes it easier. The higher you go, the easier it is.
This is easier for my muscles.
And you can change the resistance with your back right there. So just changing the resistance by making it hard or not. And it's another exercise that this just takes, it could be a few seconds, it could be a few minutes, but you really start to feel it.
Yeah, and you can do this on any wall in your house.
Any wall. There you go.
I love this.
The next one is going to be a simple push-up progression. And I like push-ups because it's another body weight exercise that can be intense. And the progression is when you're first starting out, you want to just use a wall. So it's just pushing off a wall. Okay, that's the beginner. Once you've mastered that, and that's easy, you can pick a countertop or a bench and you'll take it down here. So it's just taking it right there. That's the next level. Now, by how you place your hands, whether they're in or out, if they're in, you're gonna work more your triceps. If they're out, you're gonna work more your chest. But both are working your arms. So then advance, after you've mastered the wall, the bench, we can come to our knees and do them, right here. But ultimately, you wanna work it so it's that plank position, just standard push-ups.
Wow.
And it's an easy one to progress and do at home and engage, and it does work all upper body when you're doing a push-up. Okay.
I love that, I love that.
Okay. And then the final one I want to show you is just a simple tricep dip. So if you come on the bench with me right here, we're gonna work the back of those arms.
And this is great for like if you have flabby back arms, right?
Yeah, we gotta get rid of the back of the flab arm stuff, or the arm situation I call it.
The arm situation.
And it's just a simple down and up. That's it. Small move right there. Now what I love about tricep dips is you can make them as easy or as hard as you want here. You can do it on a bench, you can come up higher, you can do them off the ground. But I want to show you something. Go ahead and lift one leg up while you do it. Makes it more challenging, right?
It does.
So you can really play with this, and it's another body weight move that is really intense and will help to change your body, especially those arms.
Yeah, this is amazing. Thank you so much for that.
Sure.
Now, how many minutes did that take us to do?
I think we did that whole thing in less than like 4 minutes. So it doesn't, when people say you need all this time, or I have to be crazy sweating running around, you can do that. You don't have to. Just doing a few exercises like this, as long as you're challenging yourself, that's the key. You can't just do them and go through the motions. You have to challenge yourself, and if you're doing that, it changes your body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I already feel it. I feel like my whole body has been worked out just in the last few minutes that we were here.
Good.
So Natalie, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. You're such an inspiration.
Thank you.
Well, that was fun. I encourage you to try to incorporate some more of these resilience building poses into your day-to-day routine. Before you know it, you're going to be getting stronger and stronger. Now, let's talk about some of the additional habits that can help you recover your health.
When I was first trying to sort this out, the initial response is, well, let's just change all the triggers. Switch the diet, avoid the stressors, detox. And the tough part is, you can't change every element of modern life. If we could all be in a cave and be fed freshly picked spinach leaves and given massage all day or something.
That's nice.
Yeah, maybe it could work, but I don't know. So what I wanted to figure out was, what's the big needle mover? Like, what's the big leverage point on this rhythm? And I realized that because cortisol is a glucose regulating hormone, that the diet is a big opportunity. So the diet can be a way in which it's thrown off, but the diet can also be an opportunity to heal it. So the first step is to make sure your diet's not throwing it off. Mm-hmm. So, avoiding processed sugars, being strategic and minimal about things like caffeine and alcohol, avoiding other foods that can act like toxins, especially if your body's immune system's reactive to them. So that's the first step. But the next step is carbohydrates lower cortisol. So you want that to occur at night. You want to be able to sleep at night. You want cortisol down. Mm-hmm. But you don't want to be sleeping in your breakfast. You don't want to be like, dead to the world and foggy and whatnot when it's time to go do stuff and live your life. So you want to have less carbs in the morning and healthy carbs at night. And that simple strategy alone can help those rhythms. And we actually did a clinical trial on this too. And I encouraged everyone in the study, I said, okay, I don't want you to start meditating. If you don't, I don't want you to go on some botanicals. I don't want you to make radical changes. I just want this one dietary shift. And we saw before and after how their adrenal rhythms changed. And it was pretty dramatic because, some were high, some were low, some were backward. But regardless of where they started out, we saw that there was about a 58% correction back to target within the first month. Wow. Just by having some good carbs at night, but avoiding them earlier in the day.
And I want to ask you, what's been the one thing, one big thing, major change that has helped you dramatically more than anything?
The one biggest thing has to be physical relaxation. As soon as I really started physically allowing myself to relax, all of my symptoms dramatically improved.
And now, can you talk more about physical relaxation? Because people are going to say, okay, well, I relax in front of the TV every day.
Right. So I guess with physical relaxation, there's two aspects to it. So when we talk about the brain and the body, right, and how chronic conditions work, the big way that we interact with external environments is something comes in and the brain decides how it's going to interact with that thing that comes in, and then the body does it. When we're under stress, these things change, right? Mm-hmm. When you're running away from a tiger, you're not going to be digesting food very well because that's not a high priority process. And so when you go the other way and you're like, okay, nothing is happening, right? Now the body can start focusing on more low priority processes, maintenance processes. And that occurs first at a computation level. The brain decides, hey, there's nothing else going on. I can take care of, cleaning the floor and wiping the counters, the chores, right? I can take care of these things. But the second thing is really from a muscular perspective, and the roles that the muscles play in basically the entire body and the neuroendocrine system. And when you physically relax and the muscles enter these sort of relaxed states, it changes all of the hormones and chemicals that are running around in your body. And the signaling process between the brain and the body those channels begin to open up again.
What would you recommend for a person from your experience that they can start doing in their own homes right away?
The biggest thing I would recommend for a lot of people is during the day, take some time to lie down and do nothing. Really, you know, lie down on the floor, a firm surface, and try and get comfortable. And don't do anything else. You know, don't watch TV, or if you feel like listening to music and it helps you relax, that's great. But yeah, just get comfortable and just lie there. And you know, after a bit, it might be uncomfortable. You might be tossing and turning, but after a while, you'll hit a point where you're like, wow, I don't really feel like moving. And you ask yourself another question: am I relaxed? Yeah, I'm really relaxed. And that's when the magic starts to happen.
I used to be very energetic, and I felt like I had to adjust to being this whole other person now. You know, and I always had to curtail my activity or monitor like how much I was doing or how much sleep I was getting, and always worry about when the next crash was going to happen. And I just thought that that's how my life would be. Especially when I was crashing on the couch, I felt like less of a person. I felt like I wasn't contributing to anything.
Is it important for you to be contributing?
Yeah. I mean, I think it is for most people.
Yeah.
You know, we're here on earth to share our gifts with each other. You know, you can't do that very well from the couch. So, yeah.
I think a big part of healing is being able to connect with our gifts and understanding that we're here for a bigger purpose.
Yeah. And part of what I've learned is that it's okay to rest sometimes. You know, that was a hard thing for me before, because I was of the mindset that I had to be productive all the time. But when you're crashing like that and you don't have a choice but to rest, you pretty much have to, you know, suck it up.
But I think it's a way of our body communicating to us to let us know that we need to slow down.
Yeah, and of honoring yourself.
Yeah. Would that be your message for people listening who are maybe going through some of the difficulties right now, and they're feeling like, and I know I've been there, where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm on the couch, I'm so tired. And you kind of start this negative self-talk where like, it's my fault, I'm lazy. And you know, what would you say to somebody that was sitting at home thinking that?
I'd say you are doing something productive, you're healing yourself. And that's important to do.
We really do need to take that break. I actually prescribe news fasts.
News fasts, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that, you know, and I found when I was having struggles earlier in life, I found that watching the news was very addictive, and it was very reinforcing, and I ended up cutting it out cold turkey, and what do you know, I felt better. And a lot of people will say that, so one of the key takeaways could be, hey, maybe just go on a low information diet for a little while.
I love it. And Facebook's the new news, you know, that news feed, and it's addictive. Like, it just never stops. It just keeps rolling and rolling, and boy, you know, 20, 30 minutes of your life you've given away to what?
To a screen.
Yeah, a screen that's hurting your hormones.
Right.
Yeah.
So in overwhelm, when you're having issues, you know, really taking back that time and taking it back from the screens, from the news, from the newspapers, and just giving it to yourself to nourish yourself. That I think that's a foundational part of healing and getting your health back.
Yeah, I think the core problem is that the news and Facebook and all of these things, they light up the reward center of our brains. They give us an immediate stimuli and make us feel, you know, alive. It's kind of like candy. It's immediately a stimuli, no digestion needed, no thought needed. And so I challenge my patients all the time, like, what happened all day that left you needing that stimulation? Why was that reward center not nourished throughout the day? And I encourage them to literally schedule as an appointment time to nourish themselves.
Meditate, I can't, right? You just gotta breathe, right? People have a hard time with that. Spend some time with yourself alone. I can't, right? So doing nothing has become the hardest thing for people to do. And the average person, before they invented the light bulb, used to sleep 10 hours a night. Now the average person sleeps 6.5 hours a night. And that 3.5 hours that we've lost are not filled with yoga, meditation, and, you know, drumming circles. They're filled with chronic, persistent, you know, sympathetic stress. And so we've shortened the amount of time that we're in a parasympathetic state, which is when we're sleeping and relaxing, and we've lengthened the amount of time that we're in a sympathetic state. And there's no wonder that people's health is shifting in the wrong direction. And this is why people have a hard time recovering. They don't change the signal to the cell. And what I mean by this is our body's in a constant state of replacing itself, right? My nails grow, my hair grows, well, somewhat. My skin, everything is constantly replacing itself. And so you have to wonder if our body's replacing itself with brand new cells, why do people stay sick, right? And when I ask patients that, they really don't know. The answer is because you haven't changed the signal that you're sending to the cell. Right. The communication to the cell is the same. The mindset is the same. The environment is the same. The diet may have changed, but the diet doesn't control the signal, right? So, putting healthy fuel in your car, putting rocket fuel in your car doesn't make you a better driver, right? So we have to understand the message that we send to the cell, which then dictates the function of the organ, and the systems in the body needs to be coherent and congruent with health. And if it's not, if we're sending the body a catabolic stress message all the time, it's never going to heal and repair, at least not on the timelines that some patients expect, right? So it's when they change that, they go into a healing response. And you can prove this to a patient very quickly. You just ask them, how do they feel when they go on vacation? If you feel better on vacation, then there's nothing wrong with you. There's something wrong with your environment, right? Because you didn't change, right? I changed the reason you wake up in the morning. I changed what you're going to do that day, so how excited you are to start that day. I changed how active you're probably going to be, because you're probably on vacation, you're going to be outdoors, you're going to be walking more. But I didn't change you, right? I changed all these other things, which are things that we can change instantly.
I'm not the inventor of meditation. I'm not selling meditation. I just know it works, right? And it works for everyone who puts time into it. Maybe it's a mantra meditation. Maybe it's a sound meditation, a visual meditation. There's a million kinds of meditations. You got to find something that works for you, because at the end of the day, if you want to make anything happen in life, you need willpower, which most people have tried and have failed because willpower alone doesn't work, coupled with focus. And focus is scarce in our culture. For me, I decompress and do my mental hygiene by sitting on my cushion and clearing my mind and meditating. A lot of my patients, their mind clearing is actually mind numbing. They'll go home, drop on the couch and watch the Kardashians or binge watch some other show. Mm-hmm. That's not mental floss. That's mental pollution working its way in, and so your decompression ritual is actually dirty. So if you had a clean decompression ritual for clean mental hygiene, what would that look like? It's breathing, it's chanting, it's praying, it's humming. There's a lot of ways to do it, but watching TV ain't one of them.
Adaptogens are an amazing class of herbs that were originally studied in Soviet Union, actually when it was then the Soviet Union. And there was a whole program to try to increase endurance, resilience, and productivity from workers, military, athletes, and eventually cosmonauts. And so it was found that this group of herbs, which interestingly are some of what are called like the kings and queens of herbs in some of the oldest herbal traditions, like Ayurvedic medicine has ashwagandha and holy basil or tulsi, or Chinese medicine has ginseng, for example. And in Russia, their traditional medicine was something called Eleutherococcus. It used to be called Siberian ginseng because of where it grows. And these herbs were found to actually do all those things: improve stamina, increase endurance, boost immunity, and regulate productivity by helping us to have better cognitive function and better long-term performance. And as science kind of had a better understanding of where these benefits were coming from, it turned out that what they were doing is modulating that HPA axis. So they modulate the stress response from the brain all the way through the adrenals. The adaptogens can help promote sleep. They can reduce that tired and wired feeling, and they can help you have more energy when you wake up in the morning. So there are many of these herbs. And one of the beautiful qualities of adaptogens, in fact, to be defined as an adaptogen, an herb has to be non-toxic and non-specific. It has to help the whole body. So not just one organ. It's not just helping your liver. It's not just helping your adrenals. It's not just helping your thyroid. It's helping the whole body to respond.
Blood sugar balance, getting sleep, building resilience through meditation, And supporting yourself with adaptogenic herbs, maca and ashwagandha are two of my favorites for people with thyroid disease, are just some of the strategies you could use to find balance. I really do hope that the strategies that we shared will help you take charge of your health. Know that it's possible because others have done it. I really want to thank you and acknowledge you for taking the time to go deep, taking time for yourself, and watching this powerful episode. I really wanted to make sure this information reached you without you having to shell out tons of money to hear this from expensive practitioners in the know. I believe that this information should be available to everybody who needs it. I also want to let you know that if this documentary series is a resource you'd like to own, then please consider supporting our mission by making the Thyroid Secret yours. You'll be able to share it with your loved ones and watch it whenever you need a boost of inspiration or information that can get you on the right path. To record this documentary, I traveled around the country and interviewed over 150 experts, as well as people who have had success in recovering their health, so that together we could bring to light the secrets that are holding people back from recovering their health. To be honest, we're a small company that relies on the support of people like yourself. And thanks to you, we're able to continue our work in creating resources that will help in bringing an end to the suffering for millions of people. Let's look after ourselves by taking care of our adrenals and consider paying it forward to look after others by supporting this mission and helping this message to span the globe. When you own this series, you'll also have the opportunity to receive the entire uncut full-length interviews with every single expert and success story so that you can go deeper and learn more from them. Though I sure tried, we simply couldn't fit all of the transformational information that was shared with us during the interviews into the episodes. So that you don't have to miss out, I wanted to give you the opportunity to own this unreleased content. The truths you learn will surely change your life for the better. You're fully covered with our no questions asked money back guarantee. It's a peace of mind guarantee that allows you to own the material, go through it, and lets you decide whether the content is everything you had hoped it would be. Please consider supporting our mission today by clicking the link below. It doesn't matter who you are, you're going to have someone in your life that you love and care about that's planning or in the process of bringing a beautiful child into this world. But what can be the most cherished hope can turn into the darkest hell if their thyroid is out of balance. If you want to know how you can protect your health and your loved ones, this limited time episode is a must-watch for you. Pregnancy and postpartum is a time in a woman's life that should be absolutely magical. A pregnant woman should be pampered and showered with gifts as she awaits the birth of her new treasure. But unfortunately, for many women struggling with thyroid disease, this dream is stolen from them. During pregnancy, instead of joy and excitement, they're faced with fatigue, sickness, and sometimes even miscarriages. If the baby makes it through to full term, postpartum can be filled with overwhelming fatigue. Ultimately, these mothers miss out on the precious time bonding with their newborn babies because they're too tired to be emotionally present. Worse still, a dysfunctional thyroid has been linked to disorders in children such as Down syndrome and autism. But it doesn't have to be this way. In this episode, we share with you life-saving information that we've searched the globe to find. We'll share the simple things each expectant mother can do to ensure a healthy pregnancy, a healthy baby, and a joyful experience with their newborn child. Because every mother deserves this. Help us share the good news. Watch this episode and share it with those you love. Precious lives are counting on you and me. Be a part of the solution and learn the answers so you can equip our world and our future.